Ooh.
Hello, 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 my friends.
Hey, how are you doing?
I am awesome. Our dancing intro reminds me of our recent guest, Cecile Armstrong. She is doing an incredible program this week about how to talk to your racist friends and relatives. And
Yeah.
she dances in every time with a new song. And it just makes me
Hmm.
smile because it makes me think of our dancing intro every week. So it just delights me. So
Yes. Yeah.
what episode was she on? She was on
Physical wellness.
physical wellness. That's right. Okay,
Hmm.
we'll have to put a link to that episode. That was a good episode.
Yeah, it
Um,
was. We were
yeah,
talking about putting our feet, bare feet in the ground, in the grass.
right. And we did that. I don't think we
Yeah.
posted on social media, but between the
No,
three
but
of
we
us,
did
we
it.
said
Yeah, we did
together, we all sit each
it.
other of our toes.
I had a good time.
That was awesome. Should we do our intro and get started?
Yeah, let's go ahead and jump in. Hi, ladies. I am Shannon Mitchell, a Black millennial business owner, the founder of Shalo Glow LLC, a handmade shea butter company. I am your advocate for intentional self care and business care.
Hey, y'all. I'm Christine Gautreaux, a white social justice advocate, an international speaker, coach, and published author who helps you upgrade your self and community care.
Yes, and together we are Women Connected in Wisdom. Wait, excuse me, a podcast grounded in the 8 dimensions of wellness.
Right? Where we get together every week and have really cool, intentional conversations about how to be wise in business, relationships, and wellness. And plus, we just get to chat with some
Yeah,
amazing people in the world,
that's why
which,
I'm here.
right? We did two pre interviews today, y'all, that were rocking. And it just is so much fun how amazing women are in the world and the work that they're doing in the world.
Yes.
And our guest today is one of our beloved regular guests on our show. I love that we can say that now.
Yeah.
And y'all will recognize her and her wisdom as we bring her up in a little bit. But what are we talking about today, Shannon?
Yes, today our dimension of wellness is spiritual wellness. And for our definition, I'm going to go ahead and start out with both. Spiritual wellness allows us to be in tune with our spiritual selves. This realm of wellness lets us find meaning in life events and define our individual purpose. It can be defined through various factors, including religious faith, values, ethics, and morals. Regardless of whether you believe in a particular religious faith, there is always something to be learned about how you see yourself in the world.
Mm, I
Yeah.
love that. And we have our friend Glenda Walker who gave us a shout out that said, y'all are so cute, dancing queens. But I love she's listening on spiritual wellness because she is part of my spiritual community back in Texas. I
Mm,
belong to a community called the Fellowship of Comparative Religions, and we met at a women's retreat. So I
wow.
love that connection. And she is an amazing singer and artist and creative and incredibly amazing being. So thanks for
Ooh.
listening, Linda.
Hey, Glenda, welcome to the show.
Right?
Yes.
I love that when we talk about spiritual wellness, it's one of the dimensions of the 8 dimensions of wellness.
Yeah.
But to me, it's one of the keystones. It's one of the ones that if I start my day with it and I start my week with it, everything else flows better.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think of it like an anchor. I like keystones because I go back and forth between if there's that one dimension over another or if they're all equal, but definitely spiritual is something that if I don't have it at the beginning of my day, it goes differently. The patience is not as long, I'm, let's say, getting an attitude easier over something that's not important because I didn't give myself what I needed at the beginning of the day, that connection. So yeah, I would definitely agree with you on the spiritual wellness.
Right. We, Sheila and I talked about it in the Still Point book. We
Yeah.
talked about when you talk about self care, that it's multiple dimensions of ourselves, just like we talk about on the podcast. Like there's the
Right.
physical, there's the mental, there's the emotional, there's the spiritual, right? That
Hmm.
all those different dimensions. I was just, I was going to read a little bit if you'll indulge
Of
me because
course.
I was looking at this today and I was like, oh, it's always so good to go back and refresh sometimes, right?
Yeah.
We were talking about the spiritual and the elements of self care. In the spiritual dimension, attention is focused on the deep inner self. The intention is for healing and for making whole. When we are coming from a place of balance centeredness, we experience our connection to all that has gone before, to fellow travelers who share our journey, and to those who will follow after. Our attitude, once we involve the spiritual dimension, is one of wonder, curiosity, appreciation, and gratitude. These qualities of being in tune with what's happening spring from the experience of life as a gift. We no longer live in hurry up time, but slow down to tune in to subtle levels. I think about that when I think about meditation and prayer. And like, I love to start my day greeting the sun in the labyrinth. All transparency, that hadn't happened in the last couple of weeks because of travel. And I'm a little out of balance with that. But
Yeah.
I think about that slowing down and that connection to spirit, to God, to whatever you want to name it. But that I know for me personally, when I start with that, I am a better human being in all my work.
Absolutely. And I was thinking about how I know the saying, stop and smell the roses. And it seems simple, it seems cliche, but when was the last time that you stopped and smelled some flowers? And I also thought maybe it's not smelling flowers for certain people. Maybe it's putting your feet in the grass. Maybe it's for me and Shaylo Glow, look at the trees and look at the birds, know that you're taken care of. So I remember no matter what's going on that day, if the birds can sing, I can give a little gratitude, for all the breaths that I take and my heart beating still.
Right?
Yeah.
Like that place. I love that you say that about gratitude because to me that is a part of spiritual wellness.
Yeah,
Is giving those gratitudes and those shout outs.
absolutely. I mean, for me, spiritual wellness is a lot to do with the personal relationship, right? The definition talks about um, the meaning of the life experience, and what else did it say specifically? And grants balance. So for me, with the relationship, it's more about everything that's taken care of that I don't have to worry about. Like life can be so frustrating, things happen, it could be tragic sometimes. A lot of times I think in literary terms, is this a comedy or a tragedy? Well, it's a little bit of both sometimes, depending on what you're looking at. And that can be on the same day. So again, we were talking to our guest before the call about getting it out of your head. So journaling. Before I talk about all this stuff that happened, and for example, the day my bumper was on the speed bump and I was supposed to take my mom to chemo. Like that's a day where if I would have done my gratitude, okay, 10 things I'm grateful for. I can't believe I walked outside and my bumper was on the speed bump. It helps put things in perspective. It really does.
So that is part of your practice, right? That you
Yes,
do 10 gratitudes every day
every
in your
day.
I
Yes,
love
and sometimes just like you, it gets off balance, and that's now we're starting the key, okay, or the test. If why am I not doing this for myself? I see that I'm getting more and more stressed out. Things are starting to lean a little to the left. Let's pull
right.
it back. And it seems like you don't need it. It's just smelling the flower. It's not important. Okay,
Oh, it's important.
it
Yeah,
is.
I smelled some roses in my recent trip to Asheville. It was delightful. And
Yeah,
my yard right now is on fire with beautiful flowers.
I
So
love
that
all
one's
the
to
colors.
me. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, should we bring up our friend and our guest and
you know what
continue
I'm
this
gonna say.
conversation?
Yes,
Right?
yes.
Y'all know we have read, our guest today is our friend, Tracy Reese, and I'm going to give you a short bio of her. But she's awesome. That's the shortest one, right? But Tracy Reese is a certified life and mental health coach, an artist, and a ministry leader. And she has combined 17 years of journeying with several hundred women towards emotional wellness. Her work is future focused, value based, mission driven, with emphasis on identifying or exercising inherent gifts as a way to thrive through transitions into new triumphs. So I want to bring Tracy up here and continue this discussion because she is one of our wise women friends who keeps us on track with this.
Thank you. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be with you ladies today.
Yeah.
So much.
Thanks for coming back and chatting with us.
I love it. I love it. Where else would I be right now?
Right?
Nowhere but here. Wisdom connected, women connected in wisdom for sure. Especially on the topic of spiritual wellness. Christine, when you called me, I was like, I walk by faith. It's not always evident just because we talk about being spiritual beings, but we're triune. So I think we're talking about our spiritual, mental, and physical. So it's not always evident that, I'm exhibiting a measure of faith and when I'm faced with certain challenges, but really it is at the core of me. It's my crust, it's my guide, is my faith. So everything I pray flows from that place. And you all talked about that being a little out of balance. But when I think about spiritual wellness, it is not just the prayer and meditation and the reading of my word and communicating with God through prayer. But it is the other things as well, the other dimensions as well that are integrated. So I think it's important, as you all were talking about smelling the flowers and things of that nature, that's not necessarily directly correlated with a practice of faith or spirituality or religion, but it is what helps us get back to balance and reconnect with the Creator. So I think we have to really consider how integrated the dimensions are, so to speak.
Yes. And I love that you were very specific about that, because had you not said that, it might have been taken lightly, I guess, the smelling of the flowers and the being outside. I understand what you mean about this. We also have to be specific all the way down to what spirituality actually looks like. But yes, for me, that is what I think about when I think about my faith on the outside, is being able to trust, to take a second that, hey, look, God takes care of this. Is how that stuff gets done. So they didn't do anything. You not going to do anything about it either, because he has control.
Right.
And I think that gives me, and that's what keeps me, again, anchored and stable when the other things get off balance.
For sure.
I absolutely agree with you.
You talking about gratitude, both of y'all talking about gratitude. Last year, my flowers were part of what just gave me such joy in life as we were stuck in our houses, right? My dad is he is an organic farmer in Texas, and flowers are part of his love language. So he sent me like 100 gladiolas last year.
Wow.
It is a lot, right? But brought such joy to our family because we couldn't be together. They were in Texas and we were here. And it was like a manifestation of love and faith and all of those when those flowers bloomed. And they're coming back this year. My first gladiola bloomed today. I put it on Instagram. I'll share it with our listeners too. But, it is such, it is a miracle. To me, it's a miracle every time a flower blooms. And it's like, so it is part of our faith and our spiritual wellness is what gives us life. Like what gives us life? So, Tracy, you and I were having a conversation recently that I was like, come on and talk about this, because we were talking about spiritual bypass, and we were talking about how often when there's real issues like mental health or physical health or things that are also dimensions of wellness, that often we're taught to spiritually bypass it and just pray about it, and then not to take the practical steps or the incremental steps that we need to help solve the problem. So let's talk a little bit about that, because you and I were having a really good conversation about that.
Yes, absolutely. I think what I've come to know as I've journeyed through spiritual practice and my faith is that there were promises. I'm a Christian, so I go to the Word of God, the Bible, and there were promises in the Bible that I wasn't seeing manifest in my life. And I couldn't understand, why is it that I've chosen this faith to believe these things, but I don't see the manifestation of what has been promised to me as a child of God. And I don't believe that God is a liar. So I had to start looking at me and what I was or was not doing to position myself for the manifestation of those things. And if I'm talking about, say, for example, physical wellness, if I am, and I use the example, I'm not diabetic, but I'll just use this as an example. If I'm a diabetic and I'm praying to God for healing, which is one of the things that, my faith believes in. If I'm praying for healing, but I'm not seeing that manifest in my life, but I'm eating cakes and cookies and pies, and I'm saying, well, I want to see healing in my life, but I've not changed my eating habits. Then I'm not aligning myself for the manifestation of miracle of healing in my life. So it is not just me praying to be healed, but me doing the practical, natural things that support the manifestation of that thing in my life. I can't just pray for a thing and then not do the practical things that's necessary. And something I'm familiar with is, in the realm of mental health, like there are things that are contributors to our mental state that are neurological, that are physical, that need to be addressed, and that we can't just pray the depression away. Faith helps us to have a hope and a belief for the improvement of things in our lives. But I just have come to understand that, if I'm not seeing certain things show up in my life, I have got to examine what I am and am not doing to support the manifestation of those things. Right. Yes, I believe in absolute miracle, but I also understand that a lot of things do require us to consider, if I'm a triune being and there's mind, body, and spirit, I can't just address things in a spiritual sense and not think about the physical or the mental things that need to be addressed to be well. And sometimes those things not being well can cause you to waver in your faith and your spiritual growth. So I've seen that happen in my life.
Right? Yeah. It's such a system. It's like we go back to the metaphor of the flowers, right? They need the sunshine, they need the water, they need the good soil, they need to be planted, they need that bulb planted, right? Yes. It's like all of it, right? Now, sometimes I was at my dad's farm a couple of weeks ago and he had this gorgeous poppy. And I know my dad, poppies are not, I was like, where'd that come from? He's like, I don't know. I guess a bird pooped it out. So like sometimes it can happen by bird poop,
Yeah, I never thought about that.
Yeah. Sometimes it happens because of bird poop.
Right? Which is a whole nother metaphor we could talk about. But I wanted to pull up Diane's comment. She said, I think flowers are a miracle too. Really, almost everything in life can be considered a miracle in my humble opinion. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. And I love what you said, Tracy. I'm one of your biggest fans. I love how you articulate things, which is why you're here, right? But one thing I love about my relationship with God is that he lets us choose, right? And as women, I think that's such a big thing, because everybody wants to tell me what I said and you didn't even let me finish my sentence. So like, you're not even thinking about my choice because you don't even care about my choice of words. So like, we're not even going to get there. So I love that God lets us choose. So in your actions, are you reinforcing the things that you want and that you're praying for, like you said? And that's why I love how things overlap, so that you can have the discipline in the different areas to be practical. And I love how you said that I can't just pray and not do the practical things. So as a young woman, that's what I've been looking at. Okay, in each of the 8 dimensions, how do I need to get set up financially? These are the accounts I should have for my business. These are the personal accounts I should have. Environmentally, I'm a pause. I'm going to watch the wind, let the leaves blow. Socially, I'm going to make sure I'm there every Monday with my Manifestation Monday, because we manifested this podcast and here we are in a 3rd season, and do it like that. And then the rest of the stuff that I can't control, people being sentenced for bullets that missed, I just got to give that to God, because that's heavy. And I wouldn't be a nice person if it was just up to me. I live this way, again, because I walk in faith and I believe in all of those things, relying on each other to work in your favor.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that, Shannon, that, it is about, and again, I say it's the crust for me. It's my core, my faith, my spirituality. But a big part of that is, how does it show up? And then how does it show up in other areas of my life? And that's why I said I wasn't seeing the manifestation of those things. So if I am to steward what God gave me financially, then that means I have to do something. There are ands and buts that are required for us to pay attention to and not overlook when it comes to our spiritual well-being, and how it impacts the other areas of our lives.
Right. I agree with you, Tracy. For our listeners that aren't watching live, we lost Shannon, but hopefully she'll be back with us in just a second. Yes. And, I think about that. I think about the gifts that we're given, whether it is in friendships or relationships or inherent gifts that we are born with and are nurtured within us. And the struggles, right? So we have struggles, which a lot of folks have been struggling the last 2 years. It's been a big one. What do you do when you're struggling, Tracy? Like, what's something to reset your spiritual wellness?
And this is a thing, my line of work is around emotional wellness and cultivating authenticity. And I have been a ministry leader. So it is about, doing these things with the measure of faith and woven into them. But I can't lead. I can't really be effective in doing the work I do as far as my business is concerned if I don't reset. Not that I don't struggle. I absolutely do. And I think I struggle more because of the work that I do. I feel more intensely and I feel more obligated to process through those things in a way that's healthy so that I can support other people do the same thing. So yes, I struggle quite a bit, but what I do to reset is what I've done now is I've had to stop. Stillness is huge for me. I think that we live in a world that is very, very busy. Our culture here in this country is to get it done quicker, faster, go harder. And that has been counterproductive to my spiritual being and what I need when I'm struggling. When I'm struggling, I need to sit. Like when you run a race, when you get tired, you have to stop running. At some point, you stop running, and that is physically you stop running, emotionally you stop running, mentally you stop running, and you get still and sit with the things you have to sit with. Turn over the things you need to turn over. I think a lot of times the struggle comes because that practice is not consistent in my life. When I find that I am struggling the most, it is because I have not taken the time to sit still, to go through the introspection that's needed, and to invite God into that. One of the reasons why I have my faith is so I don't have to go through this alone. I know that if there is no particular person sitting next to me, I have a God who created me for an intimate relationship with him. That's why I believe I was created first and foremost was to engage in intimacy with my creator. So I go back to that when I'm struggling. It's when I get far from that, I struggle the most.
Hmm. I love the way that you put
Welcome
that.
back.
Thank
Welcome
you.
back. Tech happens. We were just having the conversation about the last 2 years has been a little rough on folks. And what do you do to reset and spiritual wellness? So I'd love for you to give our listeners, what do you do to reset spiritual wellness? Tracy was talking about stillness. And
Yes. Yes, I would absolutely say that. Specifically again for the check, I actually have it right here. Devotion and pray is the first two. And sometimes I don't feel like I can pray out loud. Sometimes I don't feel like I can pray, but I know that where it should be is at the top of everything. So if I see again that I'm there, now I'm checking the other things. So I have checks and balances in the systems. Um, and then I do genuinely try to do those every day. Do my devotion and remember Tracy was talking about God's promises. Well, what are God's promises? I love what shout out to Pastor Andrew, I believe you pronounce his last name Garrier from Trinity Chapels, now Seven Springs Church in Powder Springs. He told us in high school, he was like, you guys are like rich kids that never read the will. And I said, if I was rich, I would definitely read the will,
Yeah.
and that's how we are. So again, that's the promise that Shalo Glow is based on is
Yeah.
the trees and the birds are taken care of. And if you don't know those things, it makes sense why the darkness can seem like it's trying to envelop you. And that's why I reset every day. I'm going to make sure I charge my phone because being on the phone and live streaming and whatever it takes to connect to AirPods, I know that takes juice from my phone. And I need it tomorrow. So I need it to be fully charged. So I kind of honestly think about it like my phone and my car. I don't want my charge to be down too low on my phone or my technology. And I don't want my gas to be down too far because now that means I'm not taking care of my stuff. And
Yeah.
I try to think about it the same way. Make sure you stay charged up and a little bit higher than you need to just in case stuff gets bumpy because it's been interesting. But
right.
devoting
Yeah.
and praying and writing it out too, writing those gratitudes and then writing what's going on, what's stressing me out, or how I feel about stuff.
Well,
Shannon,
oh,
that's
go ahead.
huge. I was just going to say that's huge. That's why the stillness is important. It's the intentionality to sit and do those very things, to pray, to meditate, to write it out, to express gratitude. Like, when are you doing that if you don't have an intentionality and set time aside to exercise some of those other spiritual disciplines? Yeah.
Right.
I mentioned earlier the Fellowship of Comparative Religion, and one of my teachers, Glenda Taylor, who does oneandallwisdom.com. And one of the things I do is the connection piece. I've been a part of this group for over 20 years with women who, and it's very interesting because it's women's retreats, right? And I always talk about how it pretty much saved my sanity raising a young family, going to grad school, doing all that. Because once to twice a year, I would go to the retreats, I would go to the woods, we would pray, we would be together, we would be connected, I would sleep. We always laugh about it at Earth Springs at the retreat center because a lot of people get there and they can't sleep. But my story about the retreat center is I can sleep because I was getting away from the babies because I started going when my babies were young and I would sleep for 2 days. And so I always sleep great there. But I think about that, about the connection, because we made the commitment to ourselves that we pray for each other either at dawn or at noon or at sunset. And so, and there's a hundreds of us, right? So we always know that somebody is praying for us and sending good wishes our way, either at dawn, noon, or sunset. That's why I always like to greet the sun, because I'm like, I'm and being able to have that connection, to and whether folks call it God, whether they call it the universe, the divine feminine, however they call it. I know different beliefs have different ways they relate, but that power and that presence that is with us, that I think it's really important, that stillness. I relate with you a lot on that, Tracy. And I'm not very good at that.
Well, it is, and I think that's why it's one of the disciplines that I give the most attention to, because it's not the one that comes easiest. We can say pray, and praying without ceasing could be me in my car driving, me in my car going somewhere. I could be standing in line. And that is something that's a part of my practice, but I can do that anywhere at any time. I don't necessarily have to be, obviously there are times where I'm sitting still to do that, but I can do that in tandem with all of the other things I do. But meditation and stillness, those are things that really don't come natural and innate to us. Not in our culture. It doesn't. So it's one of the things that I've had to be intentional about. And I feel like once I started doing that, some of the other things started to click better for me. And again, we're talking about other dimensions of wellness. Stillness isn't just a spiritual thing. It's helpful for our mental, emotional. You can get real creative, financial, like you can get real creative once you've had time to still yourself. It can get you out of a lot of ruts. And I think for me, Christine, it's just not natural for most of us at all. So, yeah.
I don't know if y'all know, I don't know if I've mentioned it on our Monday group, but I have been doing Ruth King's Meditating with Race. It's been a year-long program. Wow. that she really is doing racial justice work with it, and really talking about stillness and thinking about like sitting with the feelings in our bodies, and and using stillness and connection within ourselves, but also within group development, that spiritual aspect of connection. And so I think you're right. Like it's not a natural, like it's a skill that you can build on and learn. And I'm a kinesthetic learner. So it took me really figuring out, like, I need to stretch, or I need to walk, or I need to do something physical before I sit down to listen, to pray or meditate. Because otherwise my brain is just like,
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. And stillness to me is not always just about, it's not just about like the meditation piece. It is about like having an opportunity to, for me, it just means I'm not working. So if we refer to like a Sabbath. So the stillness isn't always just I'm sitting still somewhere and not trying to think about something. But it is, it is not just about me saying I'm gonna sit here and I'm just gonna, I think the stillness is about kind of what you all were talking about earlier. It's if I'm walking through my yard and looking at flowers and just kind of calming myself. It is looking for the things that give you life. We talked about that earlier. And I think just taking a more holistic approach to what does that really mean? I think a lot of people get stuck on, well, I can't just sit, what am I supposed, but say, for example, you sit still at your job every day, you're sedentary. Stillness for you may not be sitting still somewhere because you do that every day. You may have to do something with your hands that help you to calm, which is really what it's about for me, is getting to a calm state.
Like maybe a paint process party.
Yeah, like the paint process party, definitely. Yeah, it
Talk
is.
Talk a little bit about that.
Well, it kind of mimics a paint party, which is what most people can associate it with, but it's a lot more than that. It is, I call it paint and process, or process and paint, because we have conversations around emotional wellness and oftentimes tied to our spirituality that helps us to, in a fun way, decompress. You have community there. There's opportunities to share some of the things that have challenge you in your own time where you're unable to process through, but you have community to do that with. You start to see other people in the space sharing similar things, sharing similar challenges. So you find out that you're not alone. You find out that you're not you don't have to be isolated. You can get to a place of calm and stillness through the process of, one, communication, but secondly, creation. So we take those conversations we have, and they're prompted conversations on a specific topic around emotional wellness. And then we walk through that, and then we end up on the canvas. So the paintings that we paint are a reflection of, one, the artistic process parallels a lot with life, so that there's that correlation. But then also the theme of the painting helps the patron actually go through the process of saying how this applies, what we've talked about applies, and transition that onto the canvas. So the painting itself is also a reflection, literally, of what we've talked about, what we've processed through, and they walk away with the painting that is a reminder of, you can process through these things. You can decompress. You can get to a place of calm. You can get to a better state through the process of communication and creation, which is a process in paint part. In short. It's short.
I love it.
It's one of my favorite offerings, actually. I mean, I like group coaching. I like one-on-one coaching, but it is great to see predominantly women come into a space and having trepidation, have some sense of, I'm not sure I want to, one, talk about these vulnerable things out loud. Two, I'm not a creative. So there's a lot of angst sometimes that comes into that space. But before it's all said and done, I mean, we've got 2.5, 3 hours. You see a total transformation that quickly just by, the other women opening up and sharing, me sharing my journey, and then being able to process through that in a creative way.
Right. Yeah. Our friend Sheila K. Collins, and my co-author, always says we must make art out of what happens to us.
Yes.
And, she does a lot of work with the art of grieving, which I think ties into the spiritual, and it ties into,
Absolutely.
That it's a piece of our whole selves, and that this last year, 2 years really now, we got a lot to process, right? We got a lot, especially as we're starting to reemerge and things are starting to shift and transition. Like, what do we want to keep? What do we want to leave behind? What do we want to do? Like, I know you and the three of us have had some good conversations about this. Is how are we reemerging? And what does that look like with all our 8 dimensions of wellness?
Yeah, and it's important to really give that consideration. I don't think you can come out of an experience like this the same way you went out of it, and hopefully you come out of it better. As a part of what you introduced me as, is going through those transitions and coming out feeling triumphant, not defeated. There's a lot going on, but there is a way to live your life well, and it doesn't mean that that's absent of trouble. It doesn't mean that we don't face challenges. But it is getting the appropriate tools in our toolbox and applying those things when necessary, hearing from those things, and then knowing what to release and relinquish. Shannon, you mentioned it earlier. Like, I do the things I need to do, and then I know the rest I give to God. Like, I know He's in control. So for me, it is really coming to understand that. And I have trauma in my history. I've worked with women who've experienced trauma. And this is another reason why you have to sometimes do practical things to even grow spiritually, because those traumatic things shaped how I view myself, which is a part of what we talked about in the definition of spirituality, is that inner self, and how do I see myself as in regard to how I move about in the world. So trauma can change the way you see yourself, the way you see the world, and the way you see God. the way you exercise spirituality and faith. So if you're not doing the work to heal that, it's like, oh, well, we'll pray and God will help me. But sometimes you can't even get to that place because you've got things that prohibit you from seeing, from even having faith, from even experiencing a relationship of sorts with God, or like you said, however you term it. But I think it's hugely important to remember those things when we're talking about wellness, particularly spiritual wellness.
Yeah. And there's two things that I want to make sure we hit on today, talking about spiritual wellness. What you just said, Tracy, was, I know I keep saying this, but I love it. It was so good. And something that I didn't think about adding to the list of spiritual things that I do is letting go of stuff. I actually write a list and burn it. And I feel like that's like, okay, you have a list of excuses why it won't work, throw it away. Okay, write it out and then put it in the trash can. And that helps me. I also made a list of lies that I believed about my life, you know. So you guys will find the story out when we start writing these books and stuff. But part of my Women Connected in Wisdom is not knowing my mom for 12 years. And so a lot of times we usually talk about men missing their father, but not knowing my mom for my biological mother, that's a interesting piece to a story. And
Right.
so a lie that I believed was that I wouldn't have the right amount of female influence to know how to carry myself. But when I look back at it, it was actually the opposite. I think I had more female influence than maybe most young women would from different people, and was able to see inside different houses and different relationships and different people's experiences because they were open, knowing that I didn't have my mom. And it's really, again, the opposite. I had more than I may have if she would have been here. And that way, I felt so set free, able to change again, like you said, how I thought about myself. And I wanted to talk about that piece. And then I wanted to talk about purpose, right? That's also in the spiritual definition. Finally, is what'd you say?
I say absolutely.
Right. Finally, I feel like I can say, I believe I am living in my purpose, connecting women and wisdom, making shea butter and helping people. I love going in different people's houses and they're using the shea butter to take care of themselves. My heart is so happy seeing that. So I know that because I know what things irritated me. I know what things I felt like weren't going to be able to stay for the rest of my life. And that's because I followed that still small voice and the different things that I use as guardrails to make sure that I stay on the right path.
Yeah.
What does Glenda say?
Glenda says she was on a Zoom call with some spiritual artist friends right before she saw we were on. I love synchronicity and how that happens, right? And she said, anyway, we were talking about getting back to normal and what that was to us and the world. And we hear a lot about the new normal, new or not. Like, and she was laughing about that, right? Like, because what is normal, right?
It's not.
I saw a cartoon one time that says normal is the setting on the dryer.
Thank you.
Yeah. Like, what is normality in life? I mean, we're unique beings. We all have our own experiences, and I get there are constructs which we kind of conduct ourselves within, but I don't live in. My plan is not to live in normality. Period. I'm just, that's a part of my spirit. Like, I know I'm uniquely created. I'm not the thought of living a comfortable life, a normal life, that escaped me a long time ago. So I'm not looking for the world to give me cues about normality.
Mm-hmm. I think that's very important though. Like right. And as I was getting older, that was part of what I realized making these lists, the list of the way that I thought about things and list of things that I should let go. I've realized some of this stuff I didn't even decide for myself. I took this out of somebody else's book. What are the rules that you follow and who gave you those rules? That is what helps keep me centered, because I realized that I needed to rearrange some stuff. I would say one thing, I would pray, I would do all this stuff, but my actions weren't lining up with the same list of priorities. And that's when everything else, and the other 8 dimensions was haywire.
I love that, Shannon. We
Yeah.
this Tuesday, actually, in Sheila and I radical self and community care class, we were talking about the second skill of self care that we talk about in Still Point, and it be about surrendering and letting go. That
Yeah.
oftentimes, and we were talking about the myth of Psyche and archetypes, and how Psyche was given task by her mother-in-law, and one of them was to gather the fleece from the bully rams. And she could have just gone on there head in and gotten hurt, or just being told
Tried to do
kind
it
of
by force.
right, try to do it by force, or try to do it like woo. And but she surrendered and let go and waited till they went to sleep, and then went and collected it off the bushes, and got a better result than if she would have gone forward. So I think about that all being tied in with what we're talking about, like that surrendering. And I know sometimes as a feminist, when I hear the word surrender, and then it's like a
Yeah.
like what are you asking me to do? So sitting with that sometimes,
Yeah.
sitting with the act of surrendering, to me, sometimes just being in stillness and listening is
Mhm.
is a gift, right?
Yes.
Oh
It's a
my God.
Yes.
That's
Like
some good
when I,
stuff. Purpose and surrender.
hmm
mhm.
when I think about it, the year I feel like I really started to learn a deeper level of the surrender lesson was the same year as discipline. So it's like surrender and discipline together. And we're taught that they're negative things, but it's so freeing. Why am I holding the weight of stuff that's not for me? That is heavy. Let it go. Like let it go. And not just let it go in the air, because then it's kind of like hovering over your hand and we like to grab it and try to control it again. So I started thinking about it like literally letting it go and putting it at God's feet, or giving it to his hand or her hand again, whatever. Um,
I love
name you give to the
talk
higher power.
when you talk about writing it down and burning it and releasing it, and really doing some ceremony around it,
Hmm.
um, to have intentionality around how we do that. I
Hmm.
love that, y'all. They're
And
so. I was just thinking about. I was thinking about spiritual wellness. I was thinking about ceremony or ritual, because every different faith and religion has different ones that they do. And I think really what it comes down to is the intentionality of taking the time to put time and effort, and I think about that when I think about our wisdom in action. What is our wisdom in action around spiritual wellness this week?
For me, I think I'm taking a page, the surrender thing. Surrendering the outcomes. I think that is huge. Um, yeah. Like I'm trying to make some decisions around some things, and a lot of times you can get just caught up in trying to make the right choice. And one of my favorite scriptures is all things work together for the good of those who love the Lord and are called according to his purpose. So there is a measure of knowing that I can release, I can surrender. And these decisions that I have to make them, but I can make them trusting that the outcome, no matter what, is going to be okay. I'm going to be okay. So I think that's my practice. This week is let go of the outcome, surrender the outcome, surrender, surrender, surrender. So yeah.
mhm.
You saying that, Tracy, right before I got on here, I was bawling because one of my spiritual groups, community hidden monastery, which I can put a link to folks if they want to check it out. It's an artistic spiritual group I belong to, and they had posted a link to the America's Got Talent, one of the golden buzzers, and she was singing a song about "It's Okay." I'll put the link in the show notes because y'all, it's powerful. And it was
Yeah.
talking about this young woman's journey and walk with cancer. And she said, you don't have to wait until things are okay to be happy. You can be
To be
happy and have wellness in the midst of hard stuff. And it was really powerful. It was really powerful. And using the arts just like you do to process, right? To
Yeah.
process big things. Shannon, what's your wisdom in action this week?
Keeping my plan and doing the devotion in the morning, making sure that I'm reading my Bible and thinking about it and praying over where I see myself going and the plans that we have.
Love it. Well, my wisdom in action this week is I'm getting back to my morning routine. Hopefully, the weather will help cooperate. And
Mm.
being outside to greet the sun and do my prayers and meditation. I like being outside and doing that connection, just not with myself, but with the natural world also. And I'm gonna up my gratitude list. You inspire me, my friend. Usually I do 3 to 5, and I'm all like, Shannon's over there doing 10. I got to up my
And at first I said it's too high. And the voice said, is it all this stuff that happens every day? You can find 10 things. So
right?
it was
Well,
like,
I
all
got
right.
2 right in front of me. So 2 out of the 10 are already done, my friends.
Thank you.
Tracy, as always, we love being in conversation with you. Um, Glenda gave us an amen to that. I'm not quite sure what the amen was for, but we'll take it.
Yes, yes.
gratitude.
And Tracy, thank you so much for being with us
It's a
today
pleasure, always. Yes.
Thank
Thank you for
you.
having
with me. Yeah, we will talk to you soon, my friend.
me.
I'm going to
Yes.
pop you back in the green room.
Sounds
Oh,
good.
Glenda said it's not competition, it's a goal. Yes, thank you for calling me that on that, Glenda. You know, I was raised by a white football coach in Texas. That competition gene is strong in me. I have to always look at that because that's a piece of white dominant culture. And boy, I
Mm,
can flip into that in a heartbeat. Like, whoo,
mm.
whoo. So I'll
Yes.
8 today, Shannon. All right, bye, Tracy.
Bye, Tracy. What did you say, Christine?
I said I'm only gonna do 8 today. I'm gonna not try to kick into the competition gene.
Right, right. No, I'm competitive too. They just don't know it's a competition. That's why I beat people.
Oh, this is what Glenda was giving us an amen on. Happiness during the midst of sadness and trouble. That the amen is to.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
and I love that. And when I think about spiritual wellness and how I would describe it to people, I try to be um mindful of getting too specific and people feeling like I'm trying to shove the Bible down their throat because we could be honest that they're even on my college campus. I said, see, if this is the only example I would have had, I wouldn't like us either. Like you can't spew hate at people if it's supposed to be about love. And I love that we're talking about it. I love that Tracy said coming out of transitions triumphant. Both of those, all of those together.
Right. And talking about the stillness, it's always a good reminder to me. And that stillness doesn't have to be sitting still. It can be a walking meditation. It can be smelling the flowers, but it's that intentionality. And to me, I think sometimes, Shannon, it's also the allowing, you know, the allowing of the space to feel
Mhm.
it.
I think if we were to get very specific about it, it's about the allowing of the feelings to come, the details of the situation to come, and then for you not to try to jump and answer the question. Let the situation fall and see what happens. When we were on vacation, we did a podcast and there was a gas shortage. I'm not in Georgia. I'm not worried about Georgia. I have yet to have a problem getting gas. I never needed to have the conversation, like things just fall together when we don't try to make it happen a certain type of way. But the happiness in the midst of it is because
Well,
of
I think also noticing those synchronicities, like you
yeah,
say with the gratitudes, like noticing you were in another state when that happened. What a gratitude that was, right?
yes,
and
yes,
and noticing, um I like to do that with the gratitudes too, about noticing the things that are working, because there's always going to
right.
be things that work and there's always going to be things that don't work, and where we put our intention. There's a Native American proverb about which wolf are you going to feed. You know, are
Yes.
you going to feed the wolf that is anger and hate and divisiveness? Are you going to feed the wolf that is love and faith and spirituality? Which one are you feeding today? Because we have
And
both
you
of them that live within us.
right, and you can't feed both of them equally. So that's not an answer. Okay, you have to choose which
Right?
one is going to be dominant. Yes.
Right. So yeah,
Yes.
it's amazing. Well, I am so grateful for this conversation today. And before we sneak out of here, I have to tell you, I know we want to thank our sponsor, but I want to give a personal testimonial because I am getting back in the pool. It's that time of year, right? And so
Yes.
I'm getting back in the pool, and I was like, I was drying off and I was like, what is this dry patch? You know how chlorine does that to your skin sometimes, or at least it does to
Yes.
mine. I was like, this
Yes.
is this funky dry patch on my elbow. And then I knew immediately, I was like, oh, I gotta put some Shalo Glow on that. And within a day, it's almost completely gone. So I just want to tell you thank you for making such an awesome product that
Of course.
that I love and that smells delicious, because the current one I have is mango, and I am excited. Is it a secret about the new flavor that you're coming out with?
It is a secret. They have to follow me. But what's not a secret? So if you want to know the secret when I let it out, you have to follow Shaylo Glow on both Instagram and Facebook. Okay. If you're interested in being part of the longer sales and the tips and tricks and ways to use it, just like Christine said, make sure that you join the Glow Club. That's the email subscription on the website, shayloglow.com. But um, what's not a secret now for you ladies, for our women connected in wisdom, you will get 5% off your order. I'm going to UPS tomorrow. Okay. So use the code, yes, WISE5, and I will know that you are wise. And so you get 5% off. Okay. And that way you ladies can enjoy Shaylo Glow, see what Christine is talking about, and we can be working on our physical wellness and financial
Okay,
wellness.
is that what it looks like? Wise Five?
Yes.
Is that the
Yeah,
coupon code?
it is.
Oh my gosh, that is so exciting! Thank you for that.
Yes, you're
So,
welcome.
all right, I got some people I got to order some from. Father's Day is
Mm,
coming up, y'all.
it is
So
coming up.
it's a good time to do it. All right, my friend. As always, this feels like it went by so very short, but I am grateful for our conversations and
Me too.
for being in community and connection, and yeah, I love it.
Yes. Yes. And ladies, don't forget to catch us here again next Wednesday live at 5. And in the meantime, be well, be wise, and be whole. We'll talk to you soon. Good
Thanks, y'all. Bye, Glenda.
night.